Black Myth Wukong is a single-player action role-playing game with some Souls-like elements inspired by the Chinese novel Journey to the West, developed by Chinese developer Game Science in early 2018. The story is told over the course of 6 chapters set in beautifully created landscapes filled with real-world landmarks and hidden surprises like side bosses and treasures for an exploring player to discover. The game was first announced on August 20 of 2020, accompanied by a trailer showcasing its gameplay during the pre-alpha build. Despite the early stage of game development, it had an excellent reception because it showed the game as it currently was and did not set up any special scenes or try to mislead anyone by promoting itself as something that it wasn't. Game Science started with a very small development team of just 7 people, but they knew they would need more to truly bring their vision to life. By the time of the announcement trailer, they had a team of 30 people, and following the trailer they were receiving thousands of applications from people wanting to join their studio. Of course, they were not able to expand that quickly, at the risk of losing their original vision of the game. However, the trailer did do an excellent job, not only enticing future players, but also attracting future employees. Although they had developed the trailer using Unreal Engine 4, the game was actually switched to Unreal Engine 5 for the rest of development, as the newer engine was able to capture the realism of the characters and scenes. Game Science talks about the engine switch briefly in an interview with Video Games Chronicle. Quote, "Back in 2020 we were using Unreal Engine 4. We're going for a super realistic style. We want players to feel like they're in those scenic spots. In 2021 we moved to Unreal Engine 5, which helped us in our pursuit of realism. We used mocap and scanning technology to create a very real environment. A lot of players find the game to be very beautifully made." There's no surprise that after such a massively successful trailer, the game itself would be highly anticipated, with Black Myth Wukong topping the charts for most wishlisted game on Steam from May 2024, as well as ranking first on Steam's top seller charts. Topping the wishlist and bestseller charts may be impressive, but the game also reached another impressive first place, a new record for the highest ever peak on download bandwidth for Steam at 70 terabytes per second, beating Cyberpunk 2077, previous record of 51 terabytes per second back in 2020. One pre-launch event did not go over very well with some people, however. Hero Games, who is a marketing partner for Game Science, sent some content creators an invitation code for the game as well as a few guidelines in a Google Doc. Some of these guidelines were very typical and to be expected, however a few seemed to ruffle some feathers. Let's take a look. As we see here, there is just one do entry: to have fun. However, there are 5 don't entries. Don't insult other influencers or players. Don't use any offensive language or humor. Don't include politics, violence, nudity, feminist propaganda, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. Don't use trigger words such as quarantine, isolation, or COVID-19. And lastly, don't discuss content related to China's game industry policies, opinions, news, etc. 3 of these requests can easily be twisted into a narrative if you try hard enough. Why can't people talk about feminist propaganda while playing the game, with a key they were given for free as a marketing promotion? Surely it's not because the focus should be on the game, it must be to silence women's voices, right? Why can't players talk about COVID-19? I'm sure it's very relevant in the context of a fictional game about a monkey. Why can't they talk about China's game industry policies or opinions? Could it be that they are trying to censor free speech? Or is it more likely that they were given free access to the game in order to promote the game and not talk about real-world issues that are irrelevant to the product? The answer really depends on who you ask. Crazy headlines get clicks, and who wants clicks more than a games journalist? And so very quickly they were looking for ways to cancel Black Myth Wukong and Game Science as a studio. Let's take a look at this article from IGN titled, "How Black Myth Wukong Developers' History of Sexism is Complicating Its Journey to the West." and see what they have to say. For an indie studio that has only released mobile titles within the country, this widespread acclaim over Black Myth Wukong is a largely unprecedented feat, particularly for a game that has not been released yet. But beneath the luster of this Souls-like is a studio plagued by claims of sexism. Several posts have surfaced from Chinese social media website Weibo, written by individuals from the studio that contain multiple references to genitalia and sexual innuendos. These have provoked a backlash among some in the game's community, many of whom are women. This was coupled by recruitment posters by the studio produced in 2015, which featured images and headlines that point to a culture of ingrained sexism in game science. Reading through the article, we see mention of a Weibo post where Feng Ji, one of the co-founders of game science, is seen speaking quite crudely about the 13-minute game trailer. A lot of what he says is critiques of the trailer, however there is two lines that many have latched onto. The first, "I want to expand my circle and get licked until I can't get an erection." And the second, "I know you just happen to be a little depressed. It is my honor to provide you with some comfort for the lower half of your body." Now, I'm no stranger to crude language and humor, so it's very easy for me to compare this to an English speaker claiming that something was so good it made them calm, or this was so bad it made me shit myself. The kinds of things that are said in a non-professional setting. However, for some people, the fact that Feng had said these during a professional interview situation was a bit unsettling and added more fuel to the fire in the game science is sexist camp. One woman interviewed by IGN says these comments felt unnecessarily crude and off-putting, but goes on to say she would likely still play the game anyway because it's very important for the industry. She just wouldn't promote it or support it. Another says, "In the eyes of many female players, game science has a notably negative reputation. I admire their dedication and work. I had high expectations for their game, until I came across their misogynistic remarks around 2021, which was reported in the news." As we continue in the article, there's more claims of sexism. You can pause here if you'd like to read these. Earlier, the article mentioned a recruitment image. This is the image they were talking about, and as you can see, it's quite suggestive. But is this sexism, or is this humor? Let's take a look at a translation I found on Reddit and a translation that IGN provided to see if we can make a decision for ourselves. The IGN translation only covers the main headings, and they're saying, "Mandatory self-pleasure, don't screw your colleagues, and fatties should fuck off." That's what IGN has translated from the poster, so let's take a look at another translation. This translation comes from Reddit user MajorPhilosophy191, and they say, "One has to admit that the pictures used in these recruitment posters are rather rude and sexually suggestive, but as a native Chinese, I would like to say the original meanings of these 4 posters has nothing to do with sexism or discriminating fat people, judging from the smaller texts. In the 'Don't Screw Your Colleagues' poster, which is top left, they wanted to emphasize the benefit of food and transportation. For the mandatory self-pleasure, top right, they said people in their company should enjoy making the games rather than just making big money. The fatties should fuck off, in the bottom left. The right translation should be 'Don't get yourself fat,' because they offered lots of free working out services. And finally, the bottom right means they didn't demand mandatory overtime and allowed rather flexible working routines." I used Google Translate as well, so we would have the images to look at ourselves. Google Translate provides a different meaning from the other two again, which just goes to show that translation is a difficult game, but here they are just out of interest. We also have comments made by another co-founder, Yang Chi, in 2013, making bold claims about men and women being different and enjoying different things. A direct quote from the interview, while being worded less than elegantly, is very true to reality. Chi says, quote, "The G-spots of male and female games are fundamentally different. This is not determined by the gaming environment, but by biological conditions. When you were holding a heavy machine gun and shooting at the governments in your dreams, what the ladies are dreaming about are bags that would make their friends jealous. If you design a game about turning government buildings into blood baths and bag collecting, the result will be that the girls will not like this mechanic, and you, a male, won't be satisfied with the drops, bags. End quote. So with these findings, can we claim that game science is rotten to the core, nothing but a toxic cesspool of sexism and vulgarity? I don't think so. To me, it's just some guys who may lack social awareness and professionalism talking passionately about a game they have created about a monkey beating the shit out of his enemies because he's a badass. They had a vision and a target audience from day one, and they made the product accordingly. At the end of the day, the product is what's important, not the developer's interview skills or sense of humor. So, did this attempt to stir up drama work? Well, no. To say that Black Myth Wukong had a very successful launch is an understatement. On release day, it reached over 2.2 million concurrent players on Steam, breaking the record for most players on a single-player game. But the game wasn't stopping there. For days to come, it continued to climb to a peak of 2.4 million, pushing the record even higher. While these numbers are incredibly impressive, we can't forget that this is only Steam data, and the game was available on PlayStation as well. A tweet from Game Science reveals that across all available platforms, the game had sold 10 million units and reached up to 3 million concurrent players. Physical copies of the game were sold out within seconds on Chinese e-commerce platform JD.com, with over 700,000 people signing up for a chance to purchase one of only 30,000 copies. Black Myth Wukong also performed exceptionally well on live streaming platforms both in China and abroad, sitting at roughly 30 million views in China according to this data from China Games and Streaming Tracker. For Twitch, the game peaked at 482,000 viewers, as seen on Twitch Tracker, which was just enough to get it into the top 50 peak viewers by category on Twitch at position 50. Obviously, not every category on Twitch is about gaming, so this isn't a perfectly balanced ranking, but it's still very impressive that another indie game is getting these kinds of numbers this year. Critics' opinions on the game were very favourable, with many reviewers giving it upwards of 80% and some even giving it 100%. As we can see here with The Guardian, 3DM and Gamersky all giving the highest rating possible. As did the Chinese branch of IGN, but let's be honest, that may not be reliable. While gamers over on Steam have put the game at an overwhelmingly positive, with over 550k reviews as of September 6, 2024, a date that will come up again in a future video when we cover Concord and see what happened there. This video was made over the course of a few weeks, and over that time a lot has changed with some of the numbers mentioned earlier in the video. As of today, the 18th of September, Black Myth Wukong is still sitting at 24-hour peaks of over 600,000 players, almost a month after release. Reviews for the game are still very positive on Steam, with another 4,000 plus reviews in just the past week alone, keeping that review score looking good. While over on Twitch, the game is still averaging over 10,000 viewers, which I find very impressive for a non-competitive single-player game almost a month after launch. With the massive success of Black Myth Wukong, yet another message has been sent to the AAA gaming industry titans. But will they listen this time? Or will they keep putting out failure after failure while the passionate indie teams are pumping out 10 out of 10s? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please click like and consider subscribing to the channel. This video took longer than usual to make because free time has been limited, so thank you for your patience. The next video I had planned was covering Concord. I'm pretty late to that party, but I still find it interesting, so I'll probably still cover it. See you in the next one.